Hey, welcome back to another Haven't Read It video. In today's video, we got 7 stories from Malicious Compliance. 1 or 2 may be AI, but with so many people in the world today, hardly anything is original. There's always terrible people doing terrible things out there. Our first story of the day, paint my garage. I'm very proud of this. My city has absurd rules for houses and does an inspection of the exterior every few years. Just an example, there's a person hired to drive around with a ruler to measure grass. What? They told me my garage in the back of my house needed to be scraped and repainted. It was white with such tiny spots peeling. You couldn't see from any neighboring backyard. I scoured the city code and found out there are no rules for garage color. So now my garage is a bright blue. Top comment. This is a common and very cool way to loophole in HOA codes. One person was made to take down the rainbow flag and painted their house in rainbow colors. So in response to this person saying, or the guy who was ordered to hide his boat behind a fence, so he had a picture of his boat painted on the fence. Someone else responds to this comment saying, there was another one several years back where a guy kept getting fined by his HOA for having his garage door open while working on his car. So he had a wrap company take a picture of his open garage with the car inside and wrap the door in a photo so it always looked open. Someone else replies, a side story. Some carpenter bought a house to try to flip, couldn't sell it, and decided to paint Alice Cooper's face on the garage. Because that's what every homeowner buying is looking for, right? It attracted all kinds of publicity, and Alice came and held a garage sale, making enough money to get the fan current on his mortgage. That's really cool. Next story of the day. My dad asked for a grand piano. He's getting one. Hello people. First time posting here. Nothing too evil, just a small little prank gift for my dad's birthday. Ever since I was little, every year for any gift-giving occasion, he always asks for a grand piano, refuses to tell you what he really wants, then has a pity party because you didn't get him something he truly wanted. It's annoying as hell. This year he's turning 63, and like every year, months in advance I asked him what he wanted and even offered a lot of options. Since he's a nurse, I showed him a bunch of comfy scrubs, comfortable shoes, a bigger bag for all the stuff he carries to work, and a new bike helmet. Each option was either an, I don't know, or a, I don't like that, until he finally said the good ol', I want a grand piano. So I ordered a miniature grand piano. I don't have real grand piano money, and he doesn't even know how to play piano. I'm gonna get the nicest, cutest box for this, and give it to him on his birthday. And after he experiences whatever form of grief he needs to go through, I'll give him his actual gift. This is revenge. This is petty, because I'm done and tired of him asking for a piano. And if he asks for it ever again, I'll remind him he has a piano already or order another miniature one. Top comment says, I think you're selling yourself short. Look at Craigslist. They have people giving away pianos all the time. Then hire 2 men and a truck. Please do it for Dad. OP says, I really thought about it, but due to logistics, he lives in a 2-bedroom tiny apartment on a 3rd floor. I decided against it. Come on, OP. I could also hunt down the toy piano like the one Schroeder from Peanuts plays all the time, which would be a win because old man loves that franchise. Someone else says, get a small Beethoven bust that he can put on top of it. Next top comment says, I used to always ask for a world peace because I hate the concept of asking for stuff. I'd rather get nothing than ask for stuff I can afford. My sister got tired of it and got an earth globe with a heart stuck on it. I wasn't mad. Third story of the day. You're only allowed to listen to one song. This is a more light-hearted malicious compliance, but I was thinking about it earlier and thought I'd share. When I was a kid, my dad used to torture my ears on the drive to school with his terrible music. We came to an agreement that I was allowed to listen to one song per journey, no matter the genre or what my dad thought of it. For a couple of weeks, I got to enjoy a few minutes of bliss each day, but there had to be a way I could make it last longer. That's when I discovered a band called NoFX. Most of their songs are a couple of minutes long, except for one, a song called The Decline, that's roughly 18 minutes long. I was doing my best to hide my smile when I put it on. It took about 6 minutes before he said, how long is this damn song? When I said 18 minutes, he immediately turned it off and said, I'm not listening to that crap for that long. I had my song access revoked for about a month. When I was eventually allowed one song again, it was on a case-by-case basis, and definitely not anything longer than 6 minutes. It was kind of worth it just to see my dad's reaction to an 18-minute punk song. Edit. I've got some longer songs to check out when I get home. Top comment says, I would have just come back with a 45-minute Dark Star. Someone replies, And Granny over here was thinking, Ina Gata Davida, what's a 10-minute drum solo? Someone else replies, or 36-minute cryptical envelopment from 100 Year Hall. Someone else says, Mother by Goldie, 60 minutes and 11 seconds long. Next comment says, before I read through your whole post, I had thought to myself, I'd pick the decline. Great minds think alike. Great choice. OP responds, cheers. It's still on my playlist now. Next comment says, thanks to the rise of internet jukeboxes that let you pick any song from their library instead of just the things that were pop radio friendly, I once put on Atom Heart Mother by Pink Floyd in a restaurant. It's a 24-minute long orchestral suite. One movement is various non-musical noises. Another movement is clashing parts of other movements played at the same time. Other customers were very confused. Someone else says, Sleep's Dope Smoker, 1 hour, 34 minutes, and it fucking jams. And final comment says, thick as a brick, Jethro Tull, 43 minutes and 50 seconds. Our next story of the day. Just remembered a story from my high school job. My senior year, I landed a job at a coffee shop inside a bookstore. They were the same company, so when the cafe was slow, I reshelved books and merchandise, that kind of stuff. I was hired by a manager who liked me instantly. She was super chill, and all the cafe employees liked her. She worked around our schedules, worked with us cleaning machines and wiping tables. She was great, but she moved and recommended one of our guys to take her spot. He was like a sassy gay friend movie stereotype in real life. Super catty, stirred up drama, acted like he was freaking king of the realm instead of manager at a bookstore coffee shop. One night he overheard me and another employee talking about how things had changed since he took over. We didn't say anything bad about him personally, just that the vibe was different, not as relaxed. How the old manager was more like one of the team. Saturday rolls around, I'm working a double shift, and when I clock in, he tells me, hey, I heard you and coworker talking about how much better your jobs were before I got promoted, and I'm so sorry you feel that way. I know you're here all day, but you're not making any drinks. I don't want to see you pulling shots, scooping ice. I don't even want you behind the counter today. You can clean tables and floors, take out trash, and reshelve the store, but I don't want to see you making any drinks. The bookstore was the main entrance to the mall, and this was a Saturday. By 9, a short line was forming. By 11, it was long. My coworkers were short-handed, and I told them why. Sean said I wasn't allowed behind the counter today. Throughout the day, angry customers in line asked me why I wasn't back there helping. I just told them, my manager said I can't make drinks today. Sorry about your wait. And I kept sweeping and refilling sugar and putting magazines and books away. A lot of people left before ordering. Tips were low, and the customer frustration was obvious. And Sean stayed in the back office most of the day. I missed out on tips that day, and I didn't get to work the counter, which was the funnest part of the job. But I smiled and whistled the day away, putting up magazines and wiping tables, feeling a little spark of joy every time a waiting customer complained or walked out. Top comment says, throughout the day, angry customers in line asked me why I wasn't back there helping. I just told them, my manager said I can't make drinks today. Sorry about your wait. This needed to be followed by, his name is Sean, spelled S-H-A-U-N. And here is his supervisor's contact information in case you want to give feedback. Second top comment says, your frustration is a bit of fallout. But a result of what happened to Sean would have been more satisfying. Did he keep his job? Was he disciplined? Were you asked by management? Why weren't you helping? And last comment says, although this is indeed malicious compliance, once the one whose stupid policies are being complied with, see the consequences. Fifth story of the day. Management said we had to work 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, so we did, and let them deal with explaining to our California clients why we weren't available. So this happened a while ago, before remote work was even a concept, think 2008. I was working at a large media agency, and for anyone who knows agency work, we typically work around our client's schedule, or at least as best as possible. We were based in New York City, but had California clients, so it was pretty standard that we'd get in at 10 a.m. and leave 7 or 8 p.m. If you stayed to 9 p.m., you could take a car service home, so we sometimes just did that. Most of us were in our 20s, so no big deal. When a new CEO started, he was used to working in Europe and hated that we weren't in the office at 8 a.m. and forced a company policy that we had to be in the office from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We, of course, followed the rules, because who wouldn't want to leave at 5? Let's just say the policy was lifted within 2 weeks when our West Coast clients couldn't get in touch with us. Top comment says, if you don't observe as a newbie before implementing, this is what happens. CEO in Europe or Asia, any good CEO would know that whichever area, country you go to, you have to follow the system and culture. It's one-on-one in business school. Most likely CEO, I don't know what this person's trying to say, what they say. Most likely CEOs does stems from so-called hi-fi business schools. Someone replies, it's not even that this was some obscure problem you need to watch for a month to figure out. It seems like 1 or 2 short conversations on day 1 would sort it out. Why do you guys get it at 9 and 10? West Coast clients, so we stay late. Cool. So true. Next comment says, I, East Coast, had a coworker, West Coast, who scheduled recurring Friday afternoon meetings. For him, it was an early afternoon meeting. He'd wrap up and kick off relatively early on Friday. For us, it was a late Friday evening. Obviously, nobody wanted to work into the early evening on Fridays. I asked to reschedule and was told that it was his meeting and we had to deal with it. Okay. I scheduled him a Monday morning meeting call for his projects. He cried about the early hours. Nobody has 5 a.m. meetings. Sorry, dude. Deal with it. He actually went to my boss, who was basically like, what do you think would happen? You have to be on the Monday call. His Friday call got rescheduled pretty quickly. I just canceled my bullshit meeting. That is beautiful. Somebody replies, beautiful that you didn't move it. Really make a statement that you're willing to play the same games he was. 10 out of 10 detail. Someone else replies, I had something kind of similar. I, East Coast, US, had some coworkers in London, and a guy from my office wanted to schedule a recurring team meeting on a Friday afternoon. I pointed out the immediate problem that it was going to be around 9 to 10 p.m. for them, and that wasn't a great idea. He was insistent that it would be fine. I had to go over his head to get his boss to tell him to cut it out this shit. Not sure if the London guys ever knew any of this was happening. I got it stopped before the first one was ever booked. Someone else replied, I appreciate the boss who said, what did you expect? Seriously, what did they expect? Last comment says, for all new managers, hi, welcome to our company. For the first month, you're not allowed to make any changes. After that, please talk to someone who's worked here at least 10 years and see if they think it's a good idea before you change things. I don't know. I like and dislike that 10-year comment because there's a lot of people who do stupid shit for 10 years. Like those posts where people aren't allowed to, use Control-C and V to copy paste because they think it's like hacking a computer or some shit. And they want you to actually right-click copy, right-click paste. Like, fuck no, I'm not doing that. Story number 6. You want every detail documented? Sure thing. Hope you like 200 pages. Back when I worked at a mid-sized company, my manager decided that our team wasn't thorough enough with our project handoffs. We already kept notes, but he announced that from now on, every single step had to be documented in detail. His exact words were, if it isn't written down, it didn't happen. All right then. On my next project, I documented everything. Booting up the computer, logging into the system, which buttons I clicked, why I clicked them, screenshots for every screen, timestamps, file sizes, you name it. It went into the record. By the end, my handoff wasn't the usual 6 to 8 pages. It was a full 198-page binder, neatly organized with a table of contents. I dropped it on his desk with a satisfying thunk. He looked stunned. What is this? I smiled and said, the complete documentation, just like you asked. Every step is there. He had to carry that binder to the next project review where people actually laughed at how absurd it was. After that, he quietly clarified that we only needed to document the important steps. Malicious compliance achieved. I followed the rule exactly, and he never asked for that much detail again. Tuckama says, what you did took a level of dedication and pettiness that few can ever achieve. Some might say you are a hero. I am among that group. OP replies, haha, thank you. Honestly, it felt ridiculous while I was doing it, but the look on his face when I dropped that binder on his desk made every single screenshot worth it. Second Tuckama says, I have a manual like this, every single step that I need to take to press a button, and why we need to press that button, except for the important details like who I need to contact when X happens. And it's not like people's lives depend on me clicking a button, or loads of money. I am a volunteer librarian at a kindergarten/middle school. Next comment says, I hope they remember to put that in your yearly review. Embrace new guidelines with a full understanding. Delivered above and beyond what was requested. And last comment says, there is a weak point in your story. Did your mangler ever define in writing the important steps? That's true. Always get manager's requests in writing. Last story of the day. But they aren't wearing ties. I saw a similar story that reminded me of mine. Many years ago, I worked at a print shop that no longer has its original name, but people still call it by its original name and is notorious for iffy customer service. Side note, one of the main reasons is that we encountered the most ridiculous asks. So when a perfectly reasonable request came through, we were already sitting on ready to engage in the madness. Apologies for anyone who was reasonable. Anyway, we were a pretty laid-back island of misfits, store grad students, wayward musicians, lifers, tokers, and single moms who worked 2 jobs but collectively got shit done. Profit and loss unmatched to the smoke breaks taken. Our uniforms were navy pants and a button-down shirt, long or short-sleeve dealer's choice, and could even order a cardigan sweater, which all came from the corporate catalog. We get a new district manager who does a store visit. She determines that the men were not adhering to the official uniform because none of them were wearing ties. Pause. The reason why. We have an industrial-sized laminating machine that was diabolical and easily snatched up ties. Just a general choking hazard and made absolutely no sense to wear to do this job. She threatens to write up anyone non-compliant and puts our store on notice. Quiet Storm Gill, not his real name, says, "Bet." He reviews the handbook and sees that both neckties and bow ties are acceptable with no additional descriptions. So he orders a box of what can only be called the Comical Clown Collection of bow ties from eBay, puts them in the break room and tells the store to have at it. We are talking about polka dots, paisley, stripes in every color of the rainbow and of ridiculous size proportions. Honestly, a joy to witness. Customers are like, "This is interesting." Which, by the way, makes Gil and others grumpy because they are taking a stance, not trying to spend more time with customers. A month later, the district manager visits again. We have now normalized the bow ties. She is livid. She speaks to our store manager, who shows her the employee handbook and points out how it doesn't provide color or size parameters, and technically, they are all compliant and have taken her warning seriously. So, after she leaves, our store manager says that they no longer have to wear ties, and it is up to the discretion of each employee if they want to wear a tie on shift. Every now and then, someone would walk onto the floor with a polka dot reminder. Top comment says, "My dad worked in an assembly plant as an engineer and was therefore required to wear a tie. One time he saw an accident where an engineer ignored some safety regulation and got pulled into a stamping machine by his tie. That night he bought a length of Velcro on the way home and had my mom, a seamstress, cut all of his ties at the back of the neck and sew the 2 sides of the Velcro to either end. The tie would stay together unless you gave it a mild yank and then would tear apart." Someone replies, "When I worked security, sites that had tie requirements had 2 types of ties available for use from the company catalog. One would have Velcro and the other one had an elastic band. The reason? Ties are a great thing for someone to grab a hold of to assist them in punching you in the face. I was only ever a Paul Blart in my customer-facing roles, but I did end up learning why they were a great safety invention." Next top comment says, "Bow ties are cool." Someone replies, "Doctors tend to wear bow ties, if anything, so they don't dangle onto a patient and spread germs." Next comment says, "Edna mode says no capes." That's the same rationale for no ties in a workplace. 3 cheers for Edna. I like this comment. Years ago, I was at a medical conference that was being held at a golf club. At dinner, we went to the dining room. The slimy funky at the entrance told the second doctor in the queue, one of those giving the lecture, that he could not enter because he did not have a tie. He asked if he had to go home to fetch one and was advised that he did. He responded that it was a long way from rural England to Johannesburg, but the flunky would not relent. Then the flunky looked up and saw that every person behind the lecturer was removing their ties. The organizer of the conference came to the front and told said flunky that if he were not allowed into lunch, they would not be paying the bill. For the next 2 days, nobody wore a tie. That's the end of our video. Thanks for watching. Hit the like and subscribe buttons and stay tuned for our next video. Take care.